What's up guys, Cloudie here checking in from the America server, and this video is gonna be slightly different from my usual ones, whereas it's not really a guide, just more like me expressing some of my thoughts about the state of the game and rambling on a bit about various topics. Okay, maybe the rambling is not so different, but yeah, let's get to it. Now Pansy is on the screen because she's one of the hot topics and one of the things I wanted to talk about. This came up about a couple of weeks ago, where someone posted a screenshot of a Pansy kill of Vel'Khazar, and not just killing him, but killing him at half the time, which is pretty OP. I'm running with a fairly good team, and we are very far from killing him at half time. And so a lot of people started asking for Pansirone nerfs, while others stepped up to say that she should not be nerfed because nobody likes nerfs, and saying she's fine the way she is. So there was a pretty big clash in the community about her, and I just wanted to reflect on that a little bit. Of course, nobody likes nerfs because we invest in our characters and it feels pretty bad when we have done so and just Vespa decides to make them less useful afterwards. You could think about Shea, who was running the way she was for a whole year, when Vespa suddenly just dropped the nerf hammer on her, and it just gutted the play style that she enabled before. So of course, if something is not balanced, it should be fixed in a reasonable amount of time, not months after that character is released. And Pansy has been with us for a very long time now. Now, my personal thought is that yes, she is broken OP. I'm sorry guys, it's just what I think. And she could be scaled down a little bit, but it's not necessarily her own fault, and we're gonna get into that why I believe so. But for the record, I also often say that Esker is broken OP because he's just good in too many content, pretty much almost or pretty much best in slot in a lot of content, and that just makes him one of the best investments you can make. So he could be also scaled down a little bit, but I'm also not very popular with that opinion among my friends who like using Esker. So yeah, now to go over some of the points and what is actually not so nice with the game right now, I'm gonna use a post which was linked by the admin of the Facebook community, Mona. And I found it interesting, so I just wanted to go over that. So let's switch over to that post. Now this has been made by Rainix. Sorry, I do not know how to pronounce. I don't actually know the person. I just know that he or she is in Chaos, currently the number 2 PvE guild in North America, and that he or she has plenty of A2, so he's a bit of a whale. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that their IDs and points are valid, but that they are also not entirely foreign to the game, so to say. So let's see what they are talking about. So, burst windows, Oddy, fallen Frey, magic tanks and the lack thereof, artifacts, bloated numbers, soul weapons, and the power gap. So let's see. Also not gonna comment on the style of the writing and typos or anything. It just happens, whatever. So, burst windows. Now, yeah, this is, in this paragraph he talks about, sorry, I'm gonna say he because that's easiest. He says that burst windows are one of the things in the game, and basically the only DPS mechanic that Vespa uses, which enables a certain type of playstyle, and this is pretty much true. If you take, for instance, all the guild conquest bosses or the world bosses, you literally do like 0 damage in between knockdowns, and those 10 seconds knockdown phases are where you need to put in all of your DPS. And now, back in the days when I was playing MMOs, we kind of made a difference between burst characters and DPS characters. A burst character was someone who could do a lot of damage in a very short time, but then pretty much nothing. And the DPS character was someone who could do continuous damage. And usually for PvE content, DPS type characters were better because they provided a more steady flow of damage, while burst was mostly a PvP thing. But because of the way it works in King's Raid, that you have these 10 seconds DPS windows. Burst characters have pretty much the upper hand, while you literally do so little damage in between that a lot of characters just do not function. And this also means that characters who have long cooldowns that do a lot of damage in that short amount of time are having the upper hand, and Pansirone happens to be one of these types. Now, if you couple this up with the next point, which is the existence of Oddy, or Goddy as they often call him, this makes the burst type characters even stronger, because what Oddy does is that he resets your cooldowns, not only your cooldowns, but the cooldowns of everyone, and depending on what perks you pick, he even gives a pretty big boost to mana or to damage. So yeah, Oddy pretty much enables that large nuke type characters already having a benefit or the upper hand from burst windows are even more busted. And this means that, for instance, yeah, someone like Pansy who has very long cooldowns on her and gets her those reset can even do more damage in those 10 seconds windows. And we can see that Vespa is pretty much building around these 10-second windows. It's enough to just look at the soul weapons that most of them have like 10-second times or similar to that. It's funny because the latest one, Talisha, was released with a 12-second one because they realized that you lose some time while casting it, so that was frustrating people, and now she's coming with 12 seconds, so you do not lose from your DPS time. So interesting. But yeah, basically, Oddy is a requirement in almost every PvE content with almost any setup. Really, there are just very few characters who are not about the burst now and the Oddy reset. So yeah, this is true, but sadly it doesn't really look like Vespa was changing anything, which means Oddy becomes mandatory, really. Another character who is mandatory is Loveril, but Loveril is mandatory in a different way because she just gives a massive critical damage bonus, and that's tied to one of the other points. Now let's move on. Fallen Frey. So in this point, Rainix talks about how busted Frey is, and I sort of agree, sort of disagree. It is true that with a very well-built Frey, she isn't really the best Emperor. Like, yes, she does have a lot of amp on her and gives stuff, so she is definitely good, but there are better ones out there. Why she is really good, that she allows you to build a lot more aggressive comp that stacks more buffs, more everything without dying. And this was to some extent the privilege of veiled setups so far. So yeah, you have seen like zero healer teams in various world bosses, or very low healing and stuff, because 5-star unique treasures enabled veiled teams to not die. And Vespa has kept increasing the damage on world bosses, which kind of started to mean that if you did not have at least like a 4-star unique treasure, then certain attacks would just drop your characters instantly, which was a massive frustration because not all of us can afford to run very high unique treasures. And this is also like a returning debate whether the game is too easy or not. If you ask someone who is a whale, and I will bring a concrete example, Lunate from Project Time, who is one of the top world boss scorers out there, if you ask him, he will say yes, the game is too easy. But then you look at his roster and he can technically throw an A2 plus 20 specific to various contents. So of course for him there is very little challenge in the game. If you take someone who has like a 5-star A0 plus 5 character, for them a lot of the content will not be easy at all and will in many times be actually frustrating. And this is also an interesting topic because Vespa has already announced that they will be releasing new stages for Shock Me and for Trials because they want to keep them fun. Now, I don't know if being one-shotted by bosses is fun or not. You decide. Vespa believes it is so. I guess we will see. But back to Frey, yes, she allows you to build more aggressive comps, feel closer to those very veiled comps without actually needing maxed out characters, all of your characters being maxed out. I don't really think she's broken. I mean, you could have similar results with a very well built Frey, just that she has been specifically made so that her shield can be up pretty much 100% of the time, and on top of that she has some good buffs as well. So Frey was similarly busted. It's just that nobody really built her to be that strong because it wasn't needed, and because you couldn't keep her shield up all the time. But with Fallen Frey this has been possible, and Soul Weapons this has been possible. So that's the reason, really. I do not think that actually Frey needs a nerf. It's just, yeah, some characters are less good now. It's just how it is, how the meta changes are, how it is with gacha games. Because let's admit it, if the new characters coming out wouldn't be stronger, and not just a little bit stronger, but actually a lot stronger than previous ones, then nobody would invest in them. Other than those who really want to min-max out those last 1-2% or 5% or whatever. And if you do not invest in them, then Vespa gets no money, then we do not have a game. So somewhere we have to understand that new characters will always be power creeping on the previous ones. I just accept that Fallen Frey is a lot better now than normal Frey was, and that she shifts the meta a bit in her favor. I do not really think that she broke the game, she just changed it. But that's my opinion. Moving on, magic tanks. Now, he mentions here that essentially there are no really good magic tanks, and this in turn ties into the fact that magic shred, so reducing defense, is not really useful, not just for magic but physical either, because in those burst windows the bosses generally do not have that much defense. So this, or in a lot of content you just can't reduce it. It's made so that you just cannot reduce the defense. So a lot of these stats have become a bit useless. So, and especially magic type, where you already get a lot of amp from other sources like Annette or Lavriel or Veronica even. So this means that the tanks in the magic lineup have become less and less useful. There is a Celica who can bring a hell lot of amp and also has like a cooldown reduction skill, and there is Visca like a buffer, but there is also Nyla, so you can't really state that. Now in comparison to say Loman, who has actual physical toughness reduction, the only one in the game, or say Glenvis, who has non-hero damage tied into her stuff, yeah, you could feel that the magic tanks are a little bit lacking right now. But again, this ties into the whole 10-second burst window thing, and also the fact that you cannot reduce defense anymore, and it doesn't matter that much. If like say a Theo type character who does constant damage and it actually mattered, then you could reduce the defense of bosses while you are damaging them continuously, then these type of characters would be a lot better too. But yeah, this also a bit comes back to the question that was mentioned in the director's January video, where he was talking about that they received a lot of complaints from players that magic was too strong and dominating too strong, so they wanted to make physical better. And I was scratching my head a bit. Of course, I'm a little bit biased because I was playing magic, but PvP has been the playground of physical teams for so long. I can't even remember where magic was meta. I'm not saying that there weren't viable magic teams, but magic generally had a lot more counter units in PvP, and PvE honestly felt balanced to me. There were very good physical units, and there were very good magic units, and yeah, Lavriel is more magic, and there is Annette, but physical really had their good stuff too. If you look at Vel'Khazar, Zafir, Hanus, Airs, they all were viable teams, and now they have like Pansy 2. And in the ages ago, we also had like Nyx and Crow doing physical stuff. So I don't quite agree that Magic had the upper hand, and Vespa took it on them to balance this out. And one of the things they did was that they just made World Boss 3 Xanadus just take more physical damage. And I'm scratching my head, like, you do not balance the content, you balance the hero. So if they felt that the physical was not strong enough, then they should have balanced on that edge. And right now, basically because she's also very strong and because the way Xenadus has been rebalanced, um, Pansy just dominates the scene. We have seen 500 trill damage being done, but I know that, for instance, Beagle is in somewhere in the 400 trill range. And if I'm thinking about it, like you guys might know, I have an A220 Seria, who was originally created for Xenadus and then got power created by like Artemia and stuff. Now, I have a reasonably good team. Manticore stuff, good artifacts. It's not maxed out. I could have a lot more A220s, but it's not maxed out. Now, if my current best score is around 26 trillion, so not bad, but not really great in the grand scheme of things. Now, let's say that I'm just a terrible player, which I hope I'm not, and let's say that a better player could double that with my same team, then we would have like 50 trill. And let's say that if I got all the A2 perk, A2 soul weapons and upgraded everyone for the amps, then let's say I could double it again, so essentially 4 times my current damage. Then I would still be at 100 trill, which is 25% or 20% of the current number that the Pansirone teams are pushing on a content that Seria was created for. And again, I would like to think that I'm not such a terrible player, so this is just how imbalanced that particular content is. Whether this is the fault of Pansy or not is up to you guys. I don't know. Okay, moving on. Artifact pool. Again, this is something that has come up before, even in that January video from Sean, or Sean, I don't know how he pronounces it, sorry. And basically, there are a lot of artifacts that are right out useless. You just don't want to equip them, and you cannot do anything with them. And Vespa has stated that they do not want to give you selectors or allow you to grind them for selectors like again with unique weapons, because certain artifacts are just way too strong and they don't want them to be too easy to obtain. But that's like madness. So guys, really, if they make only a few artifacts viable and then say, oh, you can't grind the useless ones because those other ones are too good. And they also do not want to balance the older ones or the not so good artifact ones, because then those players who have really been collecting them for a very long time would have an edge. And again, why did you create terrible artifacts in the first place? And if somebody already earned those artifacts, got them from all those randoms they collected, then why is it such a bad thing if they get an edge from it? Again, maybe I'm a bit biased because I do have a lot of those terrible artifacts. I think if you earned something, it should be good, especially because nobody had any chance to even disenchant or dismantle them or grind them. So it's not like if you played for years and grinded all your artifacts, then you would be at a disadvantage now. So maybe the best would be if you could just grind them for selectors, and then it would be less of an RNG fest. And yeah, that's my take on artifacts. That yeah, they are really rare. Selectors are really important, and then Jin breaks your hard-earned artifacts like he did with my Lulu Souls necklace. I'm so sad about that, to be honest. Okay, bloated numbers. I don't know whether this really matters. I have numbers turned off because it doesn't really matter whether it's like something that comes with the evolution of games. That as your characters improve, you become more OP, you have more amp, you have more base stats, you have more damage. Of course, each expansion of the game will increase upon that. So yeah, if you started from certain amount of damage, then you will have a lot more now. And that's just how the games works, guys, because if the improvements were not big enough, then nobody would really care. You wouldn't want to go in for like 10% more damage, woohoo, new expansion. You wouldn't care. You want to see big numbers. So yes, after a while you will see bloated numbers. Honestly, I just turn them off. I don't care. I can see my DPS, I can see the healing. The rest doesn't really matter what pops up on the screen. I just turn it off. On the other hand, it would be great if you could turn off a lot of skill effects or like the flashing in the game, because that I do find a lot more annoying, and I'm sure that some people who have like certain medical conditions find it especially like a nightmare that you just can't turn off all the flashing and stuff and shaking and whatever. And finally, soul weapon eaters and stats, and like the power gap that they create between new and old players and whales. So the thing with the soul weapons is that the way it increases in strength is really not linear. A base soul weapon with base eaters is almost worth nothing, and as you keep enhancing it with eaters and also adding more awakening stages, so A1 and A2 or advancement stages, the disparity between the soul weapons becomes really big, which naturally creates a massive gap between strength in characters. Um, a fully upgraded soul weapon is like, I think he does talk about this in his post, that it's similar in stats as a character with a 5-star unique weapon and unique treasure, and with optimized stat lines gears, and that's just coming from the soul weapon. So yeah, it does mean that you have characters running around with like 1.5 million attack or even more, 40 million health for all type of characters, whatever. So again, this comes back to the point that I made earlier, like when I mentioned Lunate, that yeah, if you can throw an A220 character at a specific content that it was made for or where it is good at, that content will be very easy for you. While if you do not have an A220 for that specific content, then you might have to use a generic one, which may not be so good for that type of content. Again, like imagine me trying Big Shockmere with my Seria. It's just impossible, to be honest. So yeah, for some people the game might feel too easy, and then Vespa reacts to that and is like, yeah, we need to make it harder, and then creates a yet another nightmare for those people who on the other hand do not have those kind of soul weapons and characters with the required characters with the soul weapons. And again, this is coming just from the difficulty of the game being adjusted, often based on whales. But of course, at the same time, if the game is not challenging or doesn't have any challenges at the maximum stats, then those who have maxed out characters will just get bored, because yeah, who would want, yeah, like it's just not fun when you can face roll over everything. Fun fact, I ran into Flynn Skiffle, or I'm sorry, I don't actually know how to pronounce the name, but Flynn, you probably know him as Flynn, in the arena. He essentially two-shotted me, including my A220 Seria, and just for fun I went and checked his profile, just to see how many A220s he has. I counted 30 or 31, and if you translate back into real money, that's like a new car. So lol, guys. But yeah, this is basically the power of whaling. It's just the nature of gacha games. It's just that the scissor between like um, whales and free-to-play characters, or even those kind of people who pay occasionally but do not really whale, is just so big, because the way soul weapons increase your stats is just so non-linear. It's just that it's really huge. An A1 plus 15 is still miles away from an A220, and of course this is parts because you want people to try and max out those weapons, but it kind of feels like the difference is just too huge, and unless you can max out a character, it's not really the same. Again, you can see my Seria going from A2 plus 15 to A2 plus 20, and gaining like almost doubling her attack power in the process. So yeah, that's what it really means. So this is what I think that the developers need to deal with. I don't really know what I think. Basically, soul weapons should start higher, and the improvement curve should be more linear. Getting one even at A0 plus 0 should be a larger boost to your character, and the improvements should be smaller. You might arrive at the same location, which is fine. I mean, it's just how the game he needs to evolve. You need to get more stats, otherwise, again, it becomes uninteresting. But I feel like probably the best would be if like A0 and A1 provided more bonuses and made your character instantly better, and not needing you to grind forever or wail forever to reach that certain level of power. That's what I feel. I have a lot of actually unused soul weapons because they add so little that it's like I'm just keeping them around in case I ever decide to grind them. So yeah, this is my take on the game, guys. Going back to Pansirone, again, I still do feel that she is a little bit too busted, but a lot of that doesn't come from her own fault, but just from the way the game it is. If we had, for instance, a boss that requires you to do constant damage instead of like 10-second burst frames, then Pansy suddenly wouldn't be the best in slot for that. Maybe we would see the return of like Theo or Aisha. Okay, lol, nobody gonna see Aisha back, but yeah, you get the picture. So yeah, I think it would be great if Vespa could fix some of those things. Chapter 10 is around the corner, just like 1 week from now. So yeah, maybe they do, but I'm not too optimistic. Um, but then again, I have seen a lot of other mobile games, and for now, and until now, King's Raid has been far the best. So yeah, okay, enough of me rambling. Let me know what you guys think. How do you like the game? How do you feel about these things or issues? Are they issues at all? Or do you think everything is fine and they should just keep going? So let me know in the comments below. This has been Cloudie for now, and we will be back soon when Hilda is released. So see you there. Until then, bye bye.